There are moments in life when the silence becomes unbearable, when the night stretches endlessly and the only companion you have is the sound of your own weeping. These are the moments no one sees, the hidden tears, the silent cries, the quiet breaking of a soul who has held on far too long. You smile in front of the world, but behind closed doors you collapse under the weight of burdens no one knows you carry. And the hardest part? You wonder if God sees, if He cares, if your hidden pain has any meaning. My dear friend, if that's where you are today, crushed but still breathing, weary but still hoping, then hear this. God saw every tear, and not a single one was wasted. You may not realize it now, but there's a divine record being kept. Not of your mistakes, not of your failures, but of your endurance. Your tears are sacred ink, writing a testimony only heaven understands. And while the world celebrates surface success, God is preparing to honor you for something deeper. For the private pain you endured with grace, for the moments you could have lashed out but chose love, for the nights you broke down but still believed. There's a quiet kind of strength the world doesn't recognize. The kind that wakes up every morning with wounds still fresh, yet chooses to love again. The kind that gives, forgives, serves, and believes, even when life feels unfair. This kind of strength isn't awarded medals. It's honored in a different realm. A realm where God Himself watches from the shadows, storing every tear in a bottle, preparing to turn them into rivers of favor. Why does God wait? Why does He not rescue us immediately? Because He is not merely rescuing you, He is refining you. What feels like silence is often sacred preparation. God doesn't just restore, He honors. And honor takes time. Diamonds aren't formed on demand. They are forged in pressure, in darkness, in hidden places, just like you have been. If you've been walking through a season where everything you gave went unnoticed, where your loyalty was betrayed, your sacrifice ignored, your love taken for granted, then this message is for you. You are not forgotten. You are being set apart. There is an honor coming that will not just heal your pain, it will redeem it. Every secret sorrow, every midnight prayer, every whispered plea that seemed to echo back in silence, God heard it all. Scripture tells us in Psalm 56:8, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." What kind of God keeps every tear? Not one of indifference, but one who plans to use them, to vindicate you, to elevate you, to say before heaven and earth, "This one stayed faithful in the shadows, now I will honor them in the light." You've carried your cross silently, now the resurrection is near. So stand firm. Do not misread the delay as denial. The God who watched you cry in secret is about to reward you in ways that only He can. And when it happens, it won't be subtle. It will be divine recognition. Now let us go deeper into the ways God plans to honor your hidden pain and transform it into glory. There is something deeply comforting about the thought that God forgets none of our pain. While people may overlook your efforts, ignore your loyalty, or minimize the weight of your suffering, God does not. He sees in secret. He hears the cries that never make it past your lips, and He remembers. In a world that moves fast and praises appearances, your quiet endurance can feel invisible. You may have sat in a crowded room, surrounded by smiles, yet felt utterly alone with your sorrow. You may have done good over and over without applause. You may have helped others carry their crosses while silently bleeding from your own. It's not that you wanted recognition, you simply wanted relief. But instead the silence continued. The pain lingered, and deep inside, a voice may have whispered, "Has God forgotten me?" The answer is no, never. Scripture tells us in Isaiah 49:16, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." That's not metaphorical poetry. That's divine promise. To be engraved on the palm of God is to be constantly before Him. You are not an afterthought in heaven's eyes. You are the beloved, the watched, the remembered. And every sigh, every tear, every ache of your heart has been carefully collected and recorded by a God who does not forget. It's easy to feel like your suffering has no significance when no one acknowledges it. But what if your pain carries eternal weight? What if those sleepless nights, those whispered prayers, those trembling hands folded in surrender, all have become incense before God's throne? Psalm 56:8 assures us, "You have kept count of my tossings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your record?" God doesn't just comfort us. He chronicles us, not with a pen of pity, but with a purpose to honor what was endured in faith. What was hidden from man is visible in God's courts. What was dismissed by others is deemed holy by the one who truly matters. There are times when God seems silent, not because He is absent, but because He is watching intently. Not watching in judgment, but in profound empathy. Gathering your sorrows, marking your growth, measuring the weight of your sacrifice. God's silence is never void. It is filled with observation, with preparation, with divine memory that never fades. And in His perfect time, that memory becomes movement. God does not allow suffering to go unacknowledged. What you bore in silence will be answered in glory, not only for your sake, but for others to see the character of a faithful God. So when you feel invisible, remember this: you are seen in full by the one whose memory is eternal, and He is not just remembering your pain, He is preparing to reward it. Few things reveal the strength of a soul more than the decision to show grace when revenge feels justified, when betrayal slices deep, when injustice stings, when lies are told and your name is dragged through the mud. Everything inside you screams for justice, for a response, for retribution, but you didn't take the bait. You chose restraint. You chose to keep your heart pure, even when others threw dirt. You chose grace. And though the world may call you weak for it, heaven calls you wise. There is a kind of warfare that doesn't involve shouting or striking. It's the quiet war inside, the one where you surrender your right to get even and hand it over to God. That is strength. To choose mercy when you've been wounded is not passivity, it is power under control. It is the character of Christ within you, who, when mocked and beaten, did not retaliate, but entrusted Himself to the one who judges justly. And you did the same. You could have exposed those who lied. You could have responded with the same cruelty you received. You could have proven your point, defended your name, and fought back with venom. But you didn't, not because you were blind, but because you were anchored. Anchored in something deeper. Anchored in the belief that vengeance belongs to the Lord. Anchored in the quiet confidence that God sees more clearly than any man. And heaven took notice. Do not think for a moment that your restraint went unnoticed. Every time you swallowed your pride, every time you chose silence over retaliation, every time you cried in private rather than curse in public, heaven watched. The angels saw it. The Spirit strengthened you. And God wrote it down. Why? Because these moments reflect the kingdom. The world honors power, but heaven honors purity. The world rewards retaliation, but God rewards restraint. The choice you made to extend grace was not just a noble act, it was a prophetic one. It declared to the world, "I will not become what hurt me." Grace is not weakness. Grace is warfare. It breaks cycles. It silences accusers. It disarms the enemy. And it places your life directly into the hands of a righteous judge who promises to vindicate those who wait on him. And that's what you did. You waited. You endured. You gave kindness when cruelty came your way. And now the tables are turning. Heaven is preparing a public table in the presence of those who thought you would fall. Why? Because you chose grace, and grace always comes back full. There is something profoundly sacred about the prayers whispered in solitude, the kind that don't echo back with immediate answers, the kind said through trembling lips and tear-stained cheeks, when you're not even sure if you have the strength to believe, but you pray anyway. These are not small prayers. These are the foundations of miracles. These are the seeds buried deep in spiritual soil, hidden from the world, but never hidden from God. You've prayed in silence. You've prayed when your heart was shattered. You've prayed when people mocked your faith and life seemed to contradict every promise you believed. You've knelt in the midnight hour, whispered, "God, I trust you," even when you didn't understand what he was doing. And those moments, unseen, uncelebrated, unshared, have built something eternal. We live in a world that values the visible, but in God's kingdom it is the invisible that holds the most power. Jesus himself said, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Matthew 6:6. Did you catch that? He sees what is done in secret. He listens, he stores, he responds, not always in the moment you expect, but always in the fullness of time. Your secret prayers have been bricks laid, one by one, in the unseen realm. You may not have realized it, but every word you've spoken to heaven has been crafting the very future you've longed for. Even your groans, when you had no words left, were heard by the Spirit, who intercedes with groanings too deep for words. You didn't need a spotlight for your prayer to matter. You didn't need an audience, because the one who matters most was always listening. And now he is moving. He is taking what you whispered in weakness and turning it into strength. He is turning your petitions into provision, your supplications into supernatural strategy. Sometimes we think that just because nothing changed instantly, nothing happened. But spiritual things grow quietly. Roots deepen before fruit appears. You didn't see it, but your prayers were pushing through the soil. Your faith was building a future that would one day break through the surface and shock even you. The delay was not denial, it was divine construction. You may have thought, "I've prayed too long with no answer," but in heaven, not a single prayer has expired. Not a single one has been ignored. They have been gathering, growing, being refined and multiplied, and soon what was once just a cry in the dark will become a testimony in the light. You built a foundation when no one clapped. You believed when it cost you everything. And that kind of faith is never forgotten. God is about to answer those secret prayers, not with leftovers, but with overflow. Because when you invest in heaven, heaven always returns with interest. Growth is often misunderstood. Many believe growth is loud, marked by big achievements, grand recognition, and public applause. But the deepest, most lasting kind of growth is quiet. It happens beneath the surface, away from the crowd, in the soil of suffering and solitude. That's where you grew. You didn't have cameras capturing your breakthrough. No one documented the nights you cried yourself to sleep but woke up anyway. No one saw the self-patrol it took to stay kind when you were met with cruelty. You were in the shadows, praying, forgiving, pressing on, and the world thought nothing was happening, but in truth, everything was happening. You were growing. You see, God often hides those he is preparing to honor. He takes his time shaping character before showcasing calling, because elevation without preparation destroys. But you embraced the hidden seasons. You let the fire refine you. You allowed God to strip away pride, bitterness, ego, and instead clothe you with grace, humility, and wisdom. And now God is about to take what was once hidden and make it holy in the sight of many. There is a principle deeply rooted in Scripture. What is planted in secret will eventually break into the light. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and forgotten in a prison. No spotlight, no vindication, just silence. But he grew, and when the time was right, he was lifted from the dungeon to the palace in a single day. Not because of who he knew, but because of who he became in the silence. That is your story. You didn't just survive your silent seasons, you transformed in them. You learned how to rely not on applause, but on the voice of God. You discovered your worth wasn't in people's approval, but in your Creator's affirmation. That kind of growth cannot be faked, and it cannot be overlooked forever. God is now preparing to elevate you, not to prove others wrong, but to reveal that he was right in choosing you all along. The promotion you're about to experience is not a result of striving, it's the harvest of surrender. It's not the product of networking, it's the fruit of nearness to God. And it will be public. When God exalts, he does it in such a way that no man can take credit. Your name will be spoken in rooms you never entered. Your influence will reach places your feet have not yet gone. And it won't be because you chased opportunity. It will be because God chased you with favor. You were hidden for a purpose. Now you'll be revealed for his glory. When pain cuts deep, when sorrow becomes a companion, and when you walk through seasons where the light of joy seems unreachable, it's easy to wonder whether the suffering has any meaning. You begin to ask, does God even see this? And if he does, will he ever make this right? The answer lies not just in God's awareness of your pain, but in his character. He is a just God. He doesn't just soothe the hurting, he honors the hurting. And when he does, the honor is not light, it is equal to the depth of the suffering. And in many cases, it exceeds it. You didn't just go through a hard time, you went through a silent battle. The kind where you showed up every day while your soul was falling apart. You didn't just lose sleep, you lost trust in people, in your own strength, in the path you thought would be your future. You didn't just cry, you poured out your soul to God when no one else understood you. And yet, you kept going. You kept believing, you held on. That kind of suffering is not small, and God will not repay it with something small. When you experience pain at a soul-deep level, God begins preparing a blessing of equal depth. He doesn't just give a surface reward for a heart-level wound. No, he goes down to the same level where your tears fell and builds the blessing from there. If you suffered in silence, he will reward you in clarity. If you lost everything privately, he will restore everything publicly. If you wept in secret, he will cause others to witness your joy. Job's story wasn't just about loss. It was about restoration on a divine scale. After all the suffering, betrayal, and confusion, God gave him twice as much as he had before. Why? Because the weight of his suffering required a heavier blessing. The principle still stands. God's compensation is not random. It is precise. It is personal. It is measured. He takes account of what you lost, what you endured, and how long you held on. And his response is not just to heal you, but to honor you. Honor means elevation. Honor means divine favor. Honor means vindication, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own spirit, where healing matters most. You've endured seasons that broke you, that changed you, that made you feel forgotten, but none of it was for nothing. In the place where you were humiliated, God is planning to crown you. In the space where you were ridiculed, God is preparing to reveal your reward. And that reward will not be shallow. It will not be casual. It will be so deep, so wide, so overwhelming that you'll recognize it came from heaven and heaven alone. What you carried in secret was heavy. But what God is about to place in your hands will match the depth of the burden you bore and more. When you were going through it, when your soul was aching, your heart was bleeding, and your prayers felt like whispers into the void, you never imagined that your story would one day become a lifeline for someone else. But in the kingdom of God, nothing is wasted. Not a single tear, not a single trial, not a single heartbreak. God is a master weaver, and while the threads of your pain felt random and cruel, he was quietly stitching together a testimony that would bring light to someone else's darkness. You didn't suffer just for you, you suffered with purpose. What was meant to destroy you is now the very thing God will use to deliver others. Because the people God will send to you won't need theory. They'll need truth. They won't need platitudes. They'll need lived wisdom. And you have it, not because you studied it, but because you survived it. There are people who are silently walking the same path you once did, crying in secret, questioning their worth, feeling unseen and forgotten. But when they hear your story, when they feel your words, they will realize they are not alone. Your pain, once a private burden, will become public proof that God heals, restores and honors those who endure. You will become a vessel of hope, not because you avoided suffering, but because you walked through it with God. Think of the Apostle Paul. His letters were not written from comfort, but from chains, shipwrecks, and dark prisons. And yet those words still breathe life into us today. Why? Because they came from the furnace of pain, real pain. And your words, your voice, your journey will do the same for someone else. There is a weight behind your healing, a power behind your testimony, not because it was easy, but because it was real. Your story is not over. In fact, the part that blesses others hasn't even begun. But when it does, you'll see that the very moments you wished away will become the sentences that change someone's life. Your breakdowns will become someone else's blueprint. Your scars will speak healing. Your survival will speak purpose. And that's the beauty of God's honor. It's not just about lifting you up. It's about turning your ashes into oil, your weeping into a wellspring, your secret sorrows into a voice of freedom. God doesn't just restore you, He uses you. And He doesn't use perfect people, He uses redeemed people. People who cried, who failed, who questioned, who wrestled, who were crushed, but never let go. So don't be surprised when your name is called, not just to receive honor, but to release healing. You suffered in silence. Now you will speak with fire, because your private pain was never just about you. It was preparing you to unlock someone else's freedom. There's a profound difference between comfort and honor. Comfort is what we need in the middle of suffering, a divine embrace that whispers, "You're not alone." It's the gentle presence of God that wipes your tears, gives you strength to take one more step, and reminds you that you are still loved, even in your brokenness. And yes, God is the God of all comfort, but He doesn't stop there. His love goes further. His justice reaches deeper. God does not merely comfort His children, He honors them. Tending to them. Honor is what comes after the battle. It is the reward for not giving up when it would have been easier to walk away. It is the divine recognition of what you endured that no one else saw. It is heaven saying, "This one stayed faithful when it hurt." God's honor is not like the world's applause. It is not fleeting or shallow. It is rich, eternal, transformative. It changes your position, your influence, your identity, not only in your eyes, but in the eyes of those who once thought you wouldn't survive. You cried in secret and God comforted you. But now He is stepping into a new mode. He is about to honor you, not because you earned it through performance, but because you endured it through pain. He saw every insult that bruised your soul, every betrayal that cut you deep, every lonely night when you begged Him to intervene but heard nothing. He saw the moments you chose faith over fear, surrender over bitterness, love over retaliation, and He made a decision. This one will be honored. The kind of honor God brings doesn't just heal the past, it rewrites it. He doesn't take you back to what was lost. He propels you into something greater than you ever imagined. He doesn't merely restore what was stolen, He multiplies it. Because He's not just a comforter, He's a king. And the king rewards those who carry their cross in secret, not with shame, but with glory. Your season of silent suffering was not punishment. It was preparation for public honor. That honor may come in the form of influence, peace, restoration, vindication, or all of the above, but it will come. Because God is just, and He never forgets the ones who weep and still worship. This is not just about feeling better. This is about being lifted higher. You didn't go through the fire just to survive. You went through it to shine. So if you've been wondering whether the heavens have gone quiet, whether your pain has gone unnoticed, whether your tears have simply evaporated into the night, hear this. God has seen it all. Every tear you cried in secret was holy. Every prayer whispered in pain was recorded. Every act of obedience when no one was watching is now echoing in the courts of heaven. This is your turning point. God is not just stepping into your story to comfort you. He is stepping in to honor you, to lift you out of what broke you, to heal what drained you, to establish what was always meant to bloom from your brokenness. You've passed through the fire, not as a victim, but as a vessel, and now the world will see what heaven already knew, that your silent tears were not signs of weakness, but seeds of honor, and they are about to bloom in full. Get ready. The honor that's coming will speak louder than every lie, every betrayal, every lonely night. God is about to honor every tear you cried in secret, and He will do it so magnificently no one will ever doubt who held you through the storm.